How is it going out there, my fellow world patriots? It is indeed Tuesday, January 24th, 2023. Apologize for the late entry there, guys. Getting these things together sometimes can be a little tricky, but we do have Miss Linda Forsyth here of CVINE.
How is it going out there, my fellow world?
Hold on, Linda's going to be hearing some echoing here, and that's my fault, but let me get rid of that. There we go. All right. So anyway, how's that for a start, Linda? Nice and professional there.
Oh, I'll tell you, this is typical for me. So
it's par for the course. But we are streaming over on CVINE, guys, as well. So Linda and her team will be, constantly uploading over there. So obviously check out their channel and follow for any news that may be coming up on what their specialty is, and we're going to get into that too as well, as far as what they do and the things that have been going on, because it seems to me you're being attacked by a group that is very much like, and I'd say it's a little different, like a Media Matters type of group that is looking just to, in my view, by looking over everything I've seen so far, is to basically just discredit you guys and say everything that you're saying is, basically diminish what the work you guys are doing over there, essentially. So without further ado, and we premiered the other one on my channel, part one, before this. So if you guys haven't gotten a chance to look at that, you might be in a little rears, but long story short is they've been getting harassed and trying to get raided by this company, NewsGuard. So I guess I'll let Linda take it from there because she knows the ins and outs of everything, and it's quite a nice little interesting story here.
Well, it's actually started about 4 years ago, just before the 2020 election. We got our first contact by them and said that they were contacting us to rate our website. And my first knee-jerk reaction was, pound sand, who are you? The self-appointed rating agency, fact checkers. We had been dealing with all sorts of them in Facebook that didn't have any really credentials to be able to do any of the fact checking they were doing versus what we had. But I was warned by a very wise somebody that there is a certain level of power that they have, that sure, you can tell them to go pound sand. You can go off your own way and not deal with them at all. But they will, this is through experience, blackball you. They will put it out there in such a way that nobody will work with you. Even vendors, if they find out that you have a bad rating, they can't be associated with you. They will put their rating out all across big tech, across social media. I mean, the list is endless.
It's so deja vu, Linda. Sorry to interrupt you, but it's literally deja vu. It's like Media Matters, Southern Poverty Law Center, and that's exactly what they do. And so for just to give everybody a kind of little, equal on my end, they're dealing with a website that's basically inspecting their website, whereas we were, content creators. And basically these companies would come out and be like, oh, these guys are QAnon conspiracists, or, they're talking conspiracies, and I can't believe you guys are allowing these people on your website. They'd send out a letter or write a story to PayPal or to Cash App or to these other places, and inevitably a few days later you have your, PayPal taken down or whatever. So that seems like the aim, and and I agree too. Like, when we first talked, I was like, why are you even dealing with these people? Because and you're right, they hold a certain amount of power where they can make life very difficult.
Hello.
Yeah, very, very difficult. And that's what they've been doing, right?
Well, yes. And in my opinion, it's almost kind of like the way it used to be in Chicago, the old crime syndicates or whatever. You can pay to have insurance and protection so people won't rob you, or, you pay this amount per month, et cetera, and so on. It's like, again, who are they? But if you don't do it, you're pretty much screwed. So it isn't exactly the same thing. That's not what I'm saying, but it is a form of, in my opinion, extortion. It's a crime syndicate. They're self-appointed. And the thing is, a number of the things that they docked us on as being misinformation, even though we had a long list of source and proof, like credentialed individuals and analytics and everything else that went on behind it and provided all that. The bottom line was, depending on what it was for, mind you, well, these do not supersede CDC guidelines. These do not supersede NIST. These do not, and so on and so on. So it got to be to the point that even an opinion or speaking out against a proverbial approved government report put you out as misinformation, no matter what your information was. And so this particular NewsGuard rating that we're going through, I'm going to hold their feet to the fire, which I'm going to bring out to you today on what we are going to do utilizing their own rules. And they are very aware that every single email they send me with every single question and response and every single response I give, I'm putting out there publicly to the world. They talk about they want transparency. I agree. We're giving transparency. Let the world see exactly what the rating process is, how they go through it, and what the bottom line is, a final result in the end, and what's going to happen. We've got 3 years of this behind us. The first year we got knocked off our Facebook group because they put out their rating. That's a story in and of itself. I don't want to repeat on this one. It is in part one. But there was a whole lot of volunteers that weren't getting paid for anything that NewsGuard requested, since they were helping us put articles up on the website, to go ahead and put them on there as, editors. And so, they were just like, that's great, their picture up there and so on. And they were all working really hard. A lot of them, not all of them, but a lot of them were administrators on our Facebook group page and other groups we had, and moderators. And all those names that we put up on the About Us page on the website just before the 2020 election, not only did they take down my personal page, but they took down all the group pages except for one, and every single admin and moderator that was listed on the About Us page also had their personal pages taken down, even if they never once posted in any of our groups.
Wow.
They were there for, discussion purposes or, investigations. Our attorney was there in case he needed to answer any questions. He never posted. His was taken down too. So was our graphic designer, who was just there to help with some of the graphics. Never posted. But every single personal page was taken down because of the NewsGuard report that at that time we had some reports up there with Q on it. And so with their explanations and what they were saying that you can't prove it, and the warning that I had with my friend, I went ahead and took it down. It's like, it's not worth it. We can talk about it in other places and so on. So I went ahead and I took it down. It didn't make any difference. Once it's up there, it doesn't matter how far back they go. It's like, once it's on the internet, it's forever. They still docked us.
Oh, yes.
So
they're good like that. And then, like, you found out recently too on your channel that, hey, they'll go back a year or two just to, like, on a certain YouTube channel to go back and hit you, which I've been there as well. So it's and it's tough when you're trying to do, you're trying to do a job here and get out as much information as you can to people. Not only are you trying to do that, but they're trying to hurt you. And also seems like you're spending a lot of time with them as well. So it's like your resources are being stretched, left and right with these people.
Well, they're also going into detail about, since January started, we decided not to deal with all the BS about the echo chamber of other news stories from other places, because that's what we used to do. We would fact check other news stories to see which ones were correct. That's not really needed anymore. People have pretty much are, for the most part, have discernment. We are sticking with what we know about and have the most time with, which is everything 9/11 and GTMO, KSM et al., the tribunals going on there. Individuals that we have as experts that have done forensic analysis in the university about Building 7, the whole gamut, that we're doing roundtables, which is what this is about, the CVINE 9/11 Court of Public Opinion. And so when I let them know that starting in January 2023, this is our new focus, everything else is obsolete, irrelevant. And I got questioned multiple times. Well, why are you doing that? Why not? I mean, why not? This is what we do and have done for years. Why would you care? You are here to rate our content. So anyway, you'll see. I'm not going to go over everything again.
It is weird that they're doing that. Like, why? It's like, rate us, do your job, and leave us alone. Like, why the extra questions? So it's like, are they trying to dissuade you? And the other thing too is, the CVINE group is, to my understanding, is there another woman out of like the New York Times or whatever? But basically, you guys have the press credentials to cover everything that's going on down there, and essentially, well, at least these trials and whatnot. So I want to, I'll let you obviously get into the story, but I'm going to find it very interesting later on when we start talking about, expert witness testimonies versus these people, because more times than not, we're finding that these fact checking places are just like a guy and his wife that just got divorced or whatever running something. But this appears to be a little bit more set up. So we'll see. Pardon the interruption. But yeah, these people are just, they're vultures. That's it. And that's like, this is their whole life, is to attack people. And it's the most important thing nowadays, even I think more important than money, is information, because information, can obviously lead to or take away from that as well. But that's the main deal here, is information. And they've been lying to us about most things for quite some time. And I think it's about time we start getting our foot up here. But sorry for my little rant, but go ahead.
No, it's okay. I don't know if this is the NewsGuard website that you have up. I can't tell. But you had mentioned about they're a little bit more set up. Actually, yes, I was impressed with this particular thing. The last couple of years, they have changed. Their texts, TECH, their texts that they send to do the interviewing and everything with places like us, they appear to have quite the background. This one that's working with us, Valerie, can't think of her last name, but anyway, it's on the report. I looked on this website and she's on there and she has an impressive background. It's liberal. In fact, most of the people in here I've looked at where there's coming from in background is liberal educations and etc.
Shocker.
But they are educated. And they are just doing, quite frankly, what they spent all kinds of gobs of money or loans or whatever to get their education. They're doing what they're told. This is what they honestly believe the way it should be. I have to give them at least a little bit of credit. It's like what you've learned in school. You believe what it is you've been taught. And this is unfortunately what's going on with a lot of people. How do you question that? Especially doctors and so on. But I digress. There's different parts of this, Mike, if you go through it,
sure.
about everything they do. The tech does the questioning. Through lack of a better word, they basically they're not lackeys, but they're the ones that just, they go out there and you do what you're told without deviating from the status quo. And so that is what you have to explain things to and or educate them about how and why you are doing some things. And then from there, they make the report of what you say. And maybe if you pissed them off or irritated them, the report can be skewed, I'm assuming. I don't know. But they put down pretty much, what you were told, and then they go to their proverbial editor. And the editor make some determinations. And if you go look through the process, someone higher up sometimes goes from there. In the past, when I fought and argued with them and I gave some pretty darn convincing background and etc., where they wanted me to use something that was an unattributed proof, it was like a silent source versus I had at that time, it was General Flynn. And they weren't going to let me use that. And it's like, excuse me. And she goes, well, he's not a general anymore. But anyway, they weren't going to allow me to use his attribution with his name against this silent source. So we went to an argument and they sent about 4 or 5 other people to basically work with me. And it's like, I'm not budging. I've got a name. I've got a face. I've got a video. I got proof. You got nothing except hearsay. Is this how you're going to go? Well, okay, I won that one, but they get you other ways.
Now I have links to different stories too here, so I don't know which one exactly you want me to pull up. I got report link, part 2, and I got a bunch of different ones from their lawsuits from PragerU and Gateway Pundit.
Well, let's deal with the second part of the email, the second email. She only asked a couple of questions. And if you don't mind, it's kind of, that one. It's kind of important that we do start out with this. And I'm going to read it off my phone while you have it there. Okay, commentary, NewsGuard rating process of CVINE part 2. And I always have to state this, no matter how much proof I have. Opinion. This article may contain commentary which reflects the author's opinion. So I did my due diligence. By Linda Forsythe, they need attribution. Okay, well, that makes sense. And the date. Did that. The following is part 2 of the rating process towards CVINE from NewsGuard, et cetera, et cetera. I also gave a link where part 1 can be viewed. Going on down there, a little farther, a video recording of the roundtable discussion will be added to our report after it's completed, which is what we're doing right now. For the time being, the second email mentioned between NewsGuard and the CVINE response is copied and pasted below for your reference as a continuation of part 1. I put that in there for context. Excuse me. Okay, the start of the second email, providing that you have listened to part 1, which was probably pretty important that you do that. But anyway, thank you for your thoughtful response. This is from NewsGuard, from Veronica Pervalis. I am going to get her name correctly. Please forgive me. I'm scrolling down here.
Pavilonis.
Valerie Pavilonis.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. She's a NewsGuard tech. Okay. Thank you for your thoughtful responses. A few things. This is continuation. Regarding the editors, it's true that our criterion for this actually refers to who's in charge of the website. In the vast majority of cases, those tend to be editors. But if you have no editors, naming the person in charge of content would likely suffice. Or noting on the site that the CVINE.com has no editors or no one is in charge would also likely suffice. This was in response before when she asked me why I took down all our volunteer names off of the About Us page. I said, they're not paid. They're not technically editors. Also, I just explained to you what happened to them when their names were up there. So we changed content and context and everything in doing 9/11. They're not needed up there. For the most part, it's just the individuals that are there doing the reports on Gitmo or 9/11, and in the actual article is author attribution. We have volunteers that do sweat equity, that help to go through things and etc. I'm not going to get caught up in their gain, whether she realizes she's doing it or not. You put something down with the term editor on it, the IRS looks at that as an employee. Okay.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. And so using those terms, I am going to put something up there, but it may not be what she likes, but it's going to be the truth. So anyway, that was her statement. Our response, the website and intellectual property, and this is where I've had to educate her over and over and over again on the same thing for the last how many years. The website and intellectual property is inside of an irrevocable trust, which belongs to we the people. Volunteers come in by way of a proverbial revolving door, and decisions are made with group consensus. In other words, kind of like a voting. Individual articles have author attribution. We will take your advice and post your suggestion, which is what I'm going to do. I kept it short for a reason. Part 1 had a long explanation. Okay, her next question regarding the article titled Commentary. Just going back on this one again. 9/11 Saudi Arabian hijacker Hani Hanjour piloted American Airlines 77 into the Pentagon, but was denied rental of a single-engine Cessna 1 month before because of flight incompetence. You noted that the Part 1 highlighted comes not from your team at CVINE, but from the email author. However, it is our view at NewsGuard that a site is responsible for the accuracy of all content that it publishes, regardless of where it comes from or if it appears in commentary. I answered that 3 times now in previous emails in writing, that this particular email that we have copied and pasted and put up on the website was from the CEO of 911pilots.org. He sent this email with explanation and data and source to back up everything that he is saying to just about every government on this earth. I kid you not. Anyone and everyone that has any background or standing in 9/11, which was also given to Professor Leroy Halsey, which is where I got it from, and just anyone and everything. It was blanketed widely out there. And it's a pretty damning email. It really gives some extra interesting information. And so that email was posted on the website. And that is what we use to discuss, debate, talk about, argue, show refuting evidence, whatever the case is, on our 9/11 court of public opinion. This was for discussion. It's like, this is what's out there. What do you guys think about this? And we got our experts who gave their opinions, background, and their analysis, forensic analysis, etc. She's having a problem with that and makes the statement, which absolutely is not true. You don't have to have something up there that's accurate. If you are discussing, debating, or having some sort of dialogue about it, a discussion. Okay, it's like, why is this fake? Why is this possibly true? What is there about this that maybe is correct? What about this where he says this here? Does this mesh with what is stated over here? It's for discussion. It doesn't have to be accurate. If we were along those times and thought processes, we would still be in the witch hunts, and also were Spanish Inquisitions. People were burned at the stake for questioning science, alchemy, whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, they were not allowed to do that. You don't question. Okay, this is what's going on here. It's like, excuse me. Oh, yes, we are. So your statement in number 3 below, which I'm going to be talking about right here, below answers your question here in number 2 and how these discussions are conducted according to your own rules. We have made it clear the CVINE 9/11 Court of Public Opinion is a roundtable discussion and debate that includes a video recording of the discussion. Each roundtable has a main topic and the issue being discussed, including when we are disputing official government reports and narratives. The written report is a teaser to the video recording of the actual roundtable and contains, in this case, the email being discussed for public reference and study guide. There is more to this I've already answered, so we'll request a little more due diligence on your part. I feel like I'm repeating my answers. Please look at the bottom of our website for the disclaimer on the CVINE content being for educational purposes stated as follows. In accordance with Title 17 U.S.C. Section 107, the material on this site is distributed without profit to those who have expressed a prior interest in receiving the included information for research and educational purposes. For more information, go to website at law.cornell.edu/US code, etc., etc. If you wish to use copyrighted material from the site for purposes of your own that go beyond fair use, you must obtain permission from the copyright owner. In short, we are already following your criteria and will gladly make adjustments where needed, but CVINE will continue our discussions, debates, and reports on the CVINE website, which is our constitutional right. Now, there's a statement that I copied in here. How did freedom of press come about? Are there restrictions on press freedom? The ways in which the core freedom has developed in law are explained in this overview by a First Amendment scholar. In quotations from one court ruling, quote, freedom of expression upon public questions is secured by the First Amendment so that debate on public issues should be uninhibited, robust, and wide open, unquote. Okay. So that's my statement in there. Who knows where that's going to go, if they're going to continue on with the status quo, nodding their head, and then they move on and do their same old thing. Now, her question in number 3, there isn't much to this, so just bear with me as I get through this, please. The number 3, her question to me is, to answer your other question, of course the Constitution allows Americans to question the government and express our opinions publicly. At NewsGuard, our focus is on claims accuracy, which can include relevant context, including the acknowledgement of countervailing evidence. Good. That's great. I got her to state it. I'm going to hold her to it. Our response. CVINE response. Thank you for the clarification. In past years that disagreed with government reports in exactly the way you just described, you disagreed with government reports in exactly the way you just described. We even removed some reports you pointed out, but to no avail. NewsGuard ratings are distributed widely to big tech, social media, and many others, which censored and muzzled our disagreements due specifically to NewsGuard ratings. Many of our discussions have since proven to be factual that were originally declared false by NewsGuard. What is NewsGuard's policy about correcting past ratings and providing reparations for the damages caused? I'm just curious. That being said, and most importantly, in the past, NewsGuard has held to the belief that government agency tenants have the last say and final authority for the facts. Example, CDC, AMA, NIST, etc. But CVINE has observed NewsGuard cherry-picking their targets for ratings and blatantly ignoring those who are putting out false news in direct violation of a government agency report or regulation. Following are a few examples for context, although I have hundreds. In this case, I will focus on 9/11 and GTMO content utilizing official regulations of the OMC, Office of Military Commissions, since that is what CVINE is focusing on now. There are a number of news reports with large followings that are blatantly false, but are never called out by NewsGuard or any rating agencies. These specific reports tout about various political leaders, government representatives, or Hollywood celebrities being detained, tried, or even executed in Gitmo. It has caused mass confusion where a number of the public falsely believes that Gitmo is a type of be-all, end-all dumping ground for anything treasonous. They also believe tribunals have been going on with American citizens for some time there. Why do they think that? Because NewsGuard or other fact-checking rating agencies have never addressed it, corrected it, or called it out. Why is that? In case NewsGuard isn't aware, U.S. citizens can be tried in military tribunals under certain circumstances, but never Gitmo. We are talking about jurisdiction and geography here, just like there are different types of court systems in the U.S. Following my attribution to OMC laws and regulations, I will just give a few news links with millions of followers for your context. The following OMC regulations was sent to me from the Office of Military Commissions, Ron Fleisvig, as rule of law on who can be detained, tried, and or prosecuted in Gitmo. The specifics of jurisdiction, who can be tried at Guantanamo below from MMC 219 edition. From Rule 202, in general, any alien, unprivileged enemy belligerent is subject to trial by military commission under Chapter 47A of Title 10 United States Code. Definition under Rule 103A1, alien means an individual who is not a citizen of the United States. Definition under Rule 103A29, unprivileged enemy belligerent means an individual other than a privileged belligerent who, A, has engaged in hostilities against the United States or its coalition partners, B, has purposely and materially supported hostilities against the United States or its coalition partners, or C, was a part of Al-Qaeda at the time of the alleged offense under Chapter 47A of Title 10 United States Code. Very respectfully, Ronald E. Fleisvig, Office of Military Commissions, Convening Authority, etc., etc. End of OMC quote. Here are just a few of the false news report links. There are hundreds of others, which is no exaggeration, specifically talking about Americans in Gitmo. If you want a larger report, I will be happy to send it. The OMC also has been keeping track. Many look forward to your response. Okay, so I've given 3 examples. I don't know if you want to go over those or click on those, but these are just 3 minor examples that I found it interesting that none of these have been rated by NewsGuard or fact checkers. They aren't touched whatsoever. Their following gets huger and huger every single day. We're talking hundreds and hundreds of thousands, whereas we are shadow banned out the wazoo and kept down. We had quite a good following back in 2020 when they took us down. They're doing everything to demonetize and etc. Yet these right here, according to their own government regulations, they do not address the fact that this is in complete and total contradiction to it and have caused endless confusion.
Here's my favorite one, Linda. Now, just really quickly, these other ones, and appear to be legitimate. You know what I mean? The Intercept, we've seen this stuff before. American Media Group, appears to look. Now, I know Real Raw News, and there's another one, Real Raw News and Best News Here. I know somewhere in here they claim to be a parody site or something like that. Now, where do they need to do it? And does it need to be apparent? Because if you go in here and just look up Real Raw News, you're not going to get the impression that this one is a parody site at all. And people, will send this stuff. I mean, you don't know how many emails I get from Real Raw News and Best News Here. I used to get more than I do now because I've called them out so many times. But, where does the distinction come in of, all right, I need to put we are a parody deal, this site, or I think it was this one, was actually says that they're a parody to make fun of us.
Very apparent blatant place. Do you remember a long time ago that used to have these advertorials that would take out whole pages that looked like it was a news story? And it was so convincing, but what it was actually doing is trying to get you to buy into something. It made it look like it was a news story, a breaking news story. And it got to be so convincing, they had to put in the upper right-hand corner that this was an infomercial or an advertorial or an advertisement. So they stated up in the upper right-hand corner because it was so confusing. The people didn't know that. And they would go and they would buy all this stuff thinking that the news was saying, hey, this is the newest, best thing since sliced bread. Go ahead and do that. So the actual statement needs to be everywhere. Real Raw News actually goes to the point of doing pictures. They go to the point of naming names. And some of these names are factual, but they're not in the right position within the military. Yeah. They may be doing something completely different, but they blatantly lay things out that look so real that, of course, people are confused. And unless you have direct contact with Office of Military Commissions and can get through to people and ask them about this and understand these, people aren't going to know.
Yeah, and you know what the worst part about
news?
Oh, go ahead, Linda.
This isn't the only one. It's just about every single one on there, which number one, it makes me laugh. They're talking about either having a journalist sitting there in the courtroom. I know who's in GTMO courtrooms and who's been approved, number one. Number two, all of these have to be open source hearings for a journalist to be there. A journalist cannot be in a classified closed hearing. Never has been, won't happen. There's a reason. It's not got national security. Anyone and everyone who is in that courtroom, everyone has a very high security clearance. That's number two. Number three, if what they are stating is there is a leak from somebody who is in that courtroom that is writing everything down to this degree and etc., you don't know what GTMO goes through before they even allow the tiniest thing out. They have cameras everywhere. If you have a cell phone even hidden on you, it's detected and alarms go off. They stop the hearing. It is the security is so tight. It's unbelievable. In that respect, with high security clearance, if you do a leak of classified information in a military court of law, not only would their ass be grasped very, very quickly and brought out to be treasonous, but so would the publisher, whether they are a citizen journalist or not, for leaking classified information out to the public.
You're going to do like 10 years.
Anybody in the military knows this. Oh, God, people think. So anyway, Real Raw News. That I believe they do have it hidden in there. If you go to the About Us page at the top, click on that.
Well, you know,
last time I looked,
the worst part about this, Linda, is the fact of, they're mixing in real news with it. You know what I mean? So there are certain things, Ron Klain arrested, I don't know. But so what you're telling me is General Berger doesn't have multiple lacerations to the face, a shattered kneecap, multiple contusions. I mean, I did my due diligence about a year and a half ago on one of these stories, and they referenced some JAG guy, and I looked him up, and he had been retired for like 5 years at the time, right? So that's the issue. It's like it comes into like where you can actually say, yeah, like this guy did die, and well, who knows, vaccine boosted. I believe he was, but he died of a heart attack. That's as much as they go. But About Us, let's see. Tried to bring light to topics often ignored by others. Is owned and operated by Michael Baxter, former English teacher. All content is written by Michael Baxter. believed to be the public domain.
Disclaimer down below,
for
right
informational,
there.
educational, and entertainment purposes, contains humor, parody, and satire. We've included this disclaimer for our protections on the advice of legal counsel. So they're basically saying that it's satire, but we've included this because of our lawyer told it. Now, what about CVINE doing something like this? What if you guys just write on one page obscurely, just like that?
They did this because we called them out. I talked to a Real Raw News lawyer who contacted me for basically calling them out. And it's like, oh, I am so glad you called. And I got them on the phone with my buddies over at the Office of Military Commissions. And I said, why don't you explain to them who you are and what you're doing and what your concerns are? And, maybe they can help you out. Maybe they can help clarify to me where I am mistaken, in which case I will publicly apologize. Let's let them hear about what it is, because you're getting this out there to the world, right? So let's make certain that the source that you got it from has no problem with it, right? So
how'd that phone call not go? On me. I was going to say, how'd that phone call not go?
Well, the next day, because they didn't have this there then. They did not have this there then. The next day, this came up. So basically, they're putting it out there of, people like me that are calling them out. Well, wink, wink. We're just saying it's a satire or a parody site just to cover ourselves, when they obviously have not read the laws, rules, and regulations of the Office of Military Commissions. I've been there. They hold to it like you have no idea. You can ask even the New York Times, which I'm not a fan of, but Carol, Rosenberger, I think it is, has been covering 9/11 since, 2003, I think. She's been there forever. And she is upset with what's been happening recently because they're closing all proceedings, all of them. Not even the New York Times or anyone else can get into these. They're shutting everything down where you cannot see. Everything's closed, classified. So anyway, that's all I'm going to say. You know what, you guys, you can believe what you want, but I'm trying to help you see what is going on. And you know what? This is not a popular opinion. This is not something that makes me popular at all. The truth is uncomfortable. I could be making boatloads of money right now if I put out stuff like this. I probably could do it even better than them because I have a better understanding how it works. So it isn't quite so blatantly stupid.
Yeah, I've said that too. Create some sort of obscure website or channel and, be the mysterious guy, right? Mysterious person who comes out with all this clickbait stuff. But yeah, I think it's really good that we get a dose of reality too, because, when people just keep spouting, people are getting executed left and right. Well, clearly that's not going on. But, I do forecast maybe they'll have some guests, maybe sometime. We'll see.
Well, there's one other report on here that is scary as hell. Scary as hell. If you want to go to the other report, I don't have it in front of me.
Or which one was it?
I gave you 3 of them that were false reports.
Okay, yeah.
Here, right there.
This one.
In Guantanamo case, U.S. government says it can indefinitely detain anyone, even U.S. citizens. They're talking about AUMF, authorized use of military force, which is what they do use in Gitmo on the prisoners there that are all Al-Qaeda from the Middle East. None of them are U.S. citizens, absolutely none of them. But this report came out in 2019, and somebody sent it to me recently. And this report was damning. It's long. It comes from a respected news agency. And I read through it. I was looking at who the author was and so on. It states, not in the title, I don't think it did, about the Guantanamo Bay, but yes, it does. Yes, it does. It states even in the title that it can definitely detain anyone. This was 2019 when we were first there in January 2019. So I sent this over to a couple of different contacts in the know that are coming in off the record, because this is a question that needs to go directly to the Department of Justice. It isn't under the Office of Military Commissions. And if you like, I can give you his statement. Maybe this is a completely separate video that we can do in explaining this. But this one almost had me fooled. It's like, okay, you've got to look at this and what they're saying. This is a different angle. So he came out and he clearly stated exactly why everything still stands. What is scary, in my opinion, it's like we are being groomed to accept that people we agree with to be held in a military prison in another country. We agree with it because we want to see justice, without understanding how very easily that can boomerang back right on us. J6 prisoners, example, put them away without a speedy trial, AUMF, and so on. So it's like, well, they did it to all these people. Why wouldn't they do it to you? You are being groomed slowly to accept that this is what's happening, while also keeping you calm and quiet in the meantime. That's my opinion. Also, look at the Twitter files on how they stated, this isn't verbatim, but the gist of it, maybe you can help me out here, Mike, is the CIA, FBI actually sat there in the Twitter with the employees and dictated what could and could not be released, who to, shadow ban, who to, et cetera, and so on, having to do with the election and everything else. Did you hear about that?
Well, what, the FBI and the CIA being inside the Twitter? Oh yeah, I mean they were. I mean, it's my firm belief that all of the social media platforms are started from the government. Like, we know for a fact that Facebook was LifeLog as of one. So now, so to answer your question, yes, I did see that, and they were directing, all sorts of people, and not only that, but you had congressmen and women, basically, calling in a radio station, making requests. Hey, we got Linda Forsythe over there. Think we could take her off of Twitter? Thank you. Bye-bye. And it was horrible, to the point, where, at least they're getting exposed now, So we'll see how it goes going forward. But yes, that is a very, very scary thing to see that our government is doing that to us. Because they didn't want the truth coming out. I mean, this is what we talked about earlier. It's all about the truth, and most of it was about that, CV19, and that was very, very, very dangerous for what they did to us, and there's no excuse for that stuff. But it's very scary to know that they have that type of power, that they can get into these places. And like I said, I don't think they're into them. I think they are. That's what they are. These companies are government made and ran.
Well, it's true. It's true. And it's now starting to come out about Facebook and all these other things, that we have been herded as sheep for a very long time. It's like a world global, in my opinion, crime syndicate that has its tentacles into anything and everything. And if you don't toe the line, then you get blackballed. You can't make a living, you are put down on the bottom. You're a bottom feeder, so to speak, on the social credit score. You don't live very well, or not at all. It's absolutely mind-boggling. And if people don't start thinking for themselves, which I do believe they are, I'm so grateful I do see people thinking for themselves.
Yeah, well,
which
that's
is
happening.
a good thing.
That's happening, and not only that, but we're starting, at least with Twitter, we're starting to get a little bit of transparency. And then, yeah, the whole thing with your team, or let's just say the people that were donating their time and stuff to get their personal Facebook accounts taken off, that's completely BS, right? And it's kind of right in line with what they do. The funny thing is, I got among all the other ones, I had a pretty decent following on YouTube and fairly decent on Twitter. I had 200, just 200 followers on Instagram. Hadn't posted in 6 months. They kicked me off there all at the same time. So it's a big information war right now, and they want to keep the information. They want to. My opinion is they want to make you guys seem less credible as they can, because if there's going to be anything that gets reported out of there, they want to be able to throw some shade on it. And it is disgusting to know that they're 21 years into these, or it's been 21 years since these attacks, and we have, for anybody not abreast on what's going on here, they're not even past. Not one of these people is past the pre-trial phase. 21 years after the attack on 9/11. So the whole idea of, we will never forget. It's like, well, I think a lot of people out there have forgotten, and we need to get out there and get more loud and not allow. Linda, I know it's not really on the topic what we're going to talk about too much, and it's a kind of a really quick explanation. Do you want to just tell the folks what the alleged plea deal was supposed to be?
Yes, I had gone over that in another show, but oh my gosh, to go over it quickly, on the record in a proceeding in a pretrial tribunal in January of 2020, there was an entire month that the defense team laid out why they couldn't move forward in what they were doing, which gave in a huge laundry list, step by step by step, of shenanigans and problems of what the FBI and the CIA did in stopping things from moving forward, putting out misinformation, having the person that was in the black site that was a linguist that was able to identify some of the proverbial or the alleged terrorist. I say that because I have to. Alleged terrorist, so on, retired, and was later, she got a job on the defense team that was sitting there with high classified status, and was sitting there in a closed proceeding on the defense team. That was actually one of the torturers and the person who identified them, and also was the individual who listened in to the chatter before 9/11 happened. So there's a whole laundry list of things that were put down on the record. And at the end of that trial, Judge Shane Cohen, who was the judge at the time, basically said that if even any of this is true, I have to make the very difficult decision of throwing this entire case out of court. And it was a couple of weeks later that Judge Shane Cohen suddenly announced that he was going to quit because of concerns for the welfare of his family members. And it was a couple of weeks after that GTMO shut down to the bare minimum because of the pandemic, which was a matter of a couple of weeks to flatten the curve. That to this day, how many years later, they still have either canceled, suspended, or postponed every single meeting until the last ones at the beginning of last year were supposed to finally start again, when Cheryl Borman, who was the head of the defense team that brought all these allegations against the government, they suddenly announced to her that she was under investigation for improprieties. Unreal. So she quit, and to have a learned defense attorney replaced, it can take up to 3 years before things can start again. You have to find the new defense attorney, and then this very complicated 5 terrorist case that is a capital case somebody has to be brought up to speed before they can start again. So precedent was it could take 3 years before they could start again. And so when she quit, that is when it was brought out that they're going to do a plea deal where they will take the death penalty off the table, and they will give them life in prison, send them back to their country of origin to carry out a life sentence, and
I'm sure.
basically ultimately shut down Gitmo, which, keep in mind, they've been grooming us while they've been all these AUMF terrorists that have killed a lot of people and that were never brought up on charges on anything, which they can do. They're like prisoners of war. They've been releasing them little bits at a time behind the scenes. Many people haven't even seen it, so it's trickled down, 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 down. Started out with over 800, and now they only have a couple of left. So why keep Gitmo open for? Do you see what they're doing here?
Yeah, and
they're
also,
basically.
Why are they build? Why are they? What was the whole plan of expanding it too? Like expanding it while we have, because what is it, like 30 people there now? Like 30, like in the 30 ballpark. And as Linda mentioned, there used to be hundreds of people there, and so we've already known that Nancy Pelosi and the current joke president of the United States wanted Gitmo shut down, but in the face of that, allegedly it was being expanded, and then they wanted the ability to be able to hold 2 trials simultaneously starting in 2023. Well, if they're not even past the pre-trial phase, what the hell is going on there? It's just weird. Or are they just milking it? Somebody's making a couple $100 million, pocketing some money.
Well, these are all excellent questions, but something ain't right.
Something stinks in
21 years in the government narrative, this is it, which we all, especially me, this is why I'm doing the 9/11 Court of Public Opinion, which we're going over all this. But you also have to keep in mind, I'm just going to throw out there in all fairness, Guantanamo Bay, Gitmo, is a very large, valid, credible military base. Just holding these trials there is not all they do by any means. It's a huge military base. So there are other things going on there, but those are all valid questions meant to make you question everything, add confusion, and so on. So I'm just trying to do my part and just letting you know these little things to help you with your critical thinking. And as we watch everything just kind of die with barely a whimper. That's why they're doing everything so slowly.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Do you think like CVINE is like a little thorn in their side? And then if that is the case, why are they allowing you guys press credentials? I mean, they could just say no, right, to you and to if the lady at the Times or New York Post or whatever, whoever that lady was, has a credential. Why give you guys a credential in the first place? You know what I mean? If you're going to be a bug, or maybe they just thought, we'll give them some credentials, they'll go away, after they'll lose interest after a certain amount of time. Maybe that's the prevailing thought.
Well, keep in mind, Mike, as a reminder, we are there unofficially. Okay. We are not officially there in Guantanamo Bay. We are there in Fort Meade, which has the CCTV, the live streaming coming in directly from Gitmo. We watch it in a special room on Fort Meade, which is exactly the same as being there. I will tell you unofficially, we were told that because we've been doing this for some time, things may change. But because of the way we have our corporation set up, which isn't a corporation, it's a charitable trust. We aren't technically a business. We don't have journalists that are paid like the New York Times and all these others. The military has things that they go through that are very methodically done. Change is not something that's easily to happen. And the fact that we were told this is kind of surprising to me, that things may change there. They're going to start bringing in more citizen journalists. I'd like to know why and how and when, but we'll see, unless that was just throwing a carrot my way. Who knows? But I talk with them almost daily, so they wouldn't be wasting their time with me. We'll see. We'll see.
It seems. Now, a lot of these questions, right? Like, so all the questions we see this NewsGuard group giving you, I don't see much in the way of, oh, well, you guys said this about this, and would you like to clarify? It almost seems like they're just trying to get information out of you, who you're working, who's in your group and how your business is set up, more than it seems that they're messing with you about the information that you're providing, which might become detrimental to them because of a lot of the experts in their fields that you work with, so it's like, how do they go around that one? They're going to go with, obviously they're not sticking always to the official story. It's just to make you look bad, it seems.
Or to basically take out the guts from underneath. They're asking us all the time about the irrevocable charitable trust. And it's like, why am I having to educate you about something, that, or try to trip me up? Who knows? I just keep sending them back to what was sent before. Reread it. Do your due diligence. You have your answer. So who knows? But it isn't following what they were taught to think about the way things are normally done. I created this in such a way with a whole lot of help with experts, not just myself in any way, shape, means, or form. So this proverbial news agency was owned by we the people. We could not be dictated to what we could or could not say. We would not have advertisers that basically would hold over our head. You do what we say and report this, or we're going to pull our funding. In other words, not giving anyone any leverage that is going to make them say, you do what we say, how we say it, when we say it, or you're done. Okay, well, we're not making any money. You can't defund us anymore. These are all volunteers so then it's a matter of credibility. Well, we're working with Professor Halsey of the University of Alaska, who did the actually forensic analysis for Building 7. We have a whole slew of people for our roundtables to discuss this. They're going to have a hard time discrediting all of them. We just come on and we talk. We discuss it. We show proof of what that's going to be backed up. But they'll find a way. I'm sure they will. I'm not stupid. So we'll see.
It's amazing to me, the whole Building 7 story. Never hit by a plane, and so what their official story is like, it got so hot that it weakened it. There's just the fire inside melted the steel. Like, oh my goodness! Like, buildings are not going to pancake like they did like that. They would pancake if they were structurally deficient. You'd have a mess up. You'd have let's say you'd have pushback on one level, then all of a sudden it would, boom, hit the next one. And I know it wouldn't, at weights that heavy, it's not just going to be like, ba-boom, ba-boom, ba-boom. But it certainly wouldn't just be like a free fall speed, like you're dropping, a hammer on the ground. And I mean, anybody that's looked at these things, you can look at it over and over and over again. It looks like when they demolish a building. Like, there's no other way to put it. I mean, there's really no other way to put it other than that. And no building is going to fall at that speed from simply weakened steel, if that were even the case, which we know it's not. Oh, excuse me, my opinion.
No, that's fine. The videos that we do that has these individuals on there discussing it and explaining the forensics, what was found, it's actually fascinating. And you watch what they have to say. We're talking about, as it stands right now, 3,600 credentialed architects and engineers vehemently disagree with NIST and their narrative. And, it's along with the study of Professor Halsey. They vehemently disagree with it, and that I was called out with NewsGuard about that it does. You're talking against the NIST narrative. I go, no, we're having a roundtable with credentialed individuals that are architects and engineers discussing the study that Professor Leroy Halsey did, that is sanctioned by a credentialed, or not credentialed, what is it? A type of university. It's, what is it called? Accredited. Thank you. Accredited university that they are standing behind them. There's a lot of people backing it up, showing and proving why it is impossible that the NIST narrative could be accurate, or I should say report. So it's fascinating. And I brought in a number of various different architects and engineers and other individuals, people from the fire department, people from the police department, eyewitnesses, the pilots. We've got all sorts of individuals that are giving their opinion, that have background information and source to back up what they say. So we decide, okay, we're talking about everything and everything 9/11. In this particular case, it's Building 7. A lot of interesting things about all the various other factors going on that day.
Yeah, and it almost, look at that. Look at that. Where's the pushback? Where's the resistance to anything? Like, even if you had the bottom half of that building completely deficient, let's just say the top half of it was completely deficient, it all just smushed down on. And once you got down to the floors that are much lower, that didn't have the fires in it, you would have at least some sort of pushback to it. But it's clear, and I mean, I'm sure you've seen it as well, and anybody who hasn't seen it or remembered, you had I believe it was an HBO documentary where they have a fireman talking on the phone, and he's like, all right, yeah, hon, I'm okay, here, you need to use the phone, and then it cuts. But then the actual real footage that they didn't show on HBO, she's like, oh, okay, honey, I'm all good. And he hands the phone off, and then you hear, ba-boom, ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-boom. And it's like, oh, what was that? That sounded like an explosion. Maybe one of those printers. Linda, what do you think? One of the printers blew up, perhaps?
Yeah, it's interesting. They go over all the potential possibilities that's being brought out by NIST and AE911truth.org. They architects and engineers is what it stands for. They have quite a list of people and statements and explain exactly why that is so absolutely insane, absurd. And it would mean that every building out there that has a fire, we're talking how many skyscrapers have had fires in them over the years? How many have collapsed? They're made specifically
0
to withstand this type of thing. If that's the case now, that we have buildings built where just an interior fire can make the whole thing collapse, hello? I'm going to do a side note here. Professor Halsey made the prediction that it may actually have been built with the thermite inside the walls and etc. And that it had to have some sort of catalyst or whatever that caused it to ignite and etc. Somebody made this statement, and it really got me to thinking, because I used to love watching Star Trek, all the different shows that they had, and my favorite was Voyager. But anyway, they always had some sort of a fail-safe where there was an auto-destruct button. Remember those? All different types of movies. So let's just use a little bit of deductive reasoning. If the military had some top secret information or something that absolutely could not fall into enemy hands, whatever the case may be, this is pure speculation, deductive reasoning. why wouldn't they have some sort of a self-destruct button? Or something to that effect. If there's a nuclear submarine stuck at the bottom of the ocean, or I don't know. It just kind of makes me wonder that, why not, and especially all these government buildings, why wouldn't there be something like that? But I have zero proof, nothing.
Well, and I remember too, this is a little story on AE911truth.org. 15 years later, in the physics of high-rise building collapses. Now, I remember back then, within a few years of this, and they were citing, I don't believe it was these guys, but they were citing another fire of a steel structure high-rise in Brazil, I want to say, where it was on fire for like 28 hours or something like that, and it was a full ablaze, and it never came down, never even came close to coming down. But this thing was on fire for 28 hours straight, and what was Building 7 on, for 7-8 hours, maybe 10 hours at most, and a couple of printers in there or whatnot. I mean, it's just laughable. If it wasn't so serious. But that's the thing, is people need to get louder about this stuff and let them know, just like the posts talk about, and a lot of T-shirts we see, we will never forget. I feel like a lot of people, not that they forgot about it, but just not on their list of important things to do, but we need to hold our government accountable, as at least as far as seeing this thing out and seeing what the real truth of this stuff is. I mean, so many things they try to keep private for so many years, but it's laughable what they try to give us as truth. But like you said earlier, and I agree, people are starting to wake up, I think, at rapid pace now, because you know why? It's starting to affect them, and it's somewhat having to do with like the stuff with the Twitter stuff, right? Like, nobody cared that they pulled Trump off of Twitter. That was one of the Twitter files, right? Oh, nobody cared that a bunch of conservatives got kicked off of Twitter. Oh, but then they start talking about the lies for COVID and this, that, and the other. They start talking about FTX, where, Republicans and Democrats on both sides have, tried to make money or use that facility. So the problem is the lies are noticeably starting to affect the other side as well. And that's when we're going to start to get the change that we need.
You very well said. It was about, a couple months ago, I went with a friend over to the JFK Museum in Dallas. And I must have been about 3 years old at the time, maybe 2. So, I don't remember it. But of course, I heard about it. And I didn't expect to be affected the way that I was. Because looking at this, obviously, as an adult, plus looking at everything that I do with all different types of news, I was watching the same flippin' narrative being spun in a lot of ways at that time as there is now. It's people questioning, people knowing that there's more to this. They were bringing up the same type of things that we are right now about 9/11, and was a lot louder when 9/11 was closer. But as the years go on and things go forward, and memories start to fade, and the pain of it starts to go away, and all these other things are happening in our life, it just starts to go into the background, just like what they're doing with 9/11. As horrific as that was, that's why they're saying never forget. We just found out, it was released, the JFK files admits that the CIA did it. They planned it. It's admitted. It's in the files.
Yeah, and everybody's saying, where are the files?
The screaming and everything else? Who's demanding reparations? Who's demanding justice? We're so busy trying to survive right now because of all this other stuff going on. It's like they're numbing us to all of this, where we just start giving up trying to make anything happen. It's sad. But what do? We have to continue hoping and praying that there are things, which I do believe they are, that we do not know about. We can't know about it. There are things going on behind the scenes. Always that he's not going to let the enemy know his plans. And that is very much, that's Sun Tzu, The Art of War, and so on. Anything that you have seen happen has happened suddenly, without warning, had nothing to do with dates. It had nothing to do with anything. It just, boom, it happened. Roe versus Wade, going on for 50 years, boom, overturned. Georgia Guidestones, been sitting there for the longest time. They have all sorts of security cameras around, and then all of a sudden, boom, what happens? It's either hit by lightning or they say it was a bomb, but the next day, bulldozers tear it down instead of trying to repair it or trying to figure out what was behind it, the forensics. That happened awful quick. What about North and South Korea? 50 years of war. Trump goes there and all of a sudden they're shaking hands in the demilitarized zone. North and South is talking again and all this happening. Boom. Within a couple months. That, in my opinion, is how things are going to happen. You aren't going to see it coming. They aren't going to see it coming. They are not going to be allowed to see it coming. Nobody is. With just all this other stuff going on, which makes me beg a question, Mike.
Mm-hmm.
There's one thing that the Q drop said, that misinformation is necessary.
Yep.
Calling out this misinformation on our side, is it maybe there for a reason from the good guys? Should I start keeping my mouth shut?
Well,
I don't want to screw up some good things that are happening. That is one thing that I was thinking about. Now, the only reason that I am doing it is because we bring out things from public source, never classified, never insider information, never ever. It's all public access source. The only reason I'm doing this is because I'm concerned that people still aren't thinking. They aren't connecting dots. They aren't understanding the big picture that if indeed this is what they say is happening, how this can be turned against you, how this can really hurt us in the long run, how we're being groomed to accept things just like our children are being groomed to accept various different sexual deviations and thought processes and so on. You don't think they're grooming us too? Well, all the commercials and TV and shows that we watch, it's like a constant, propaganda brainwashing machine. I personally have been considering this lately. Screw it all. I don't need this headache anymore and trying to, explain this. I'm exhausted. I'm not making any money. I know how to make money. But, I'm barely existing on purpose because I don't want to make it so they have leverage over me. When do I stop living like this and start getting a life? Maybe part of the propaganda is to keep everyone so skull blocked on their phones and their cameras and their TV and their laptops and, iPads and everything else, that they won't go out and live. Just go out and live. Go out and raise their families. Go out and, start doing what our grandparents did in I don't know, having our own chickens and, doing our own garden if possible, which was a normal thing. Start learning how to do that and just start living life without being worried about all this fear mongering that's constantly going on, and doing what you can locally with your neighbors, with your church, with any political rallies or this type of thing. Working where you are, starting where you're at your home, and everyone doing that and making a difference. Your local sheriff, if they're a constitutional sheriff, they can arrest anyone. You know that? If they're a constitutional sheriff.
Yep, the most powerful person in any jurisdiction is that sheriff.
So, just working with your own surroundings, your own home. I'm probably just tired and, just spouting stuff because I'm exhausted. But there's, in my opinion, a certain amount of truth to that. Live your life. I mean, how many, I know I do, 24/7, first thing you do, pick up your phone.
Guilty.
How many people have tried to live without their phone for 1 week? I went on a cruise one time. I thought I was going to go insane. It's just that literally we're all attached at the hip. That in and of itself is grooming for guess what? The convenience. Let's not worry about if we lose our phone. We can just, have everything inserted in us. We're already doing a lot of it with the credit cards and debit and so on when we buy things. But anyway, I digress. That's not at all what this was about.
I got something for you, Linda. And you know what? It's, people will go through what you're saying, being exhausted, and there was even a drop that talked about it, battle fatigue, right? So it talked about, if that's the case, you need to take some time off, take a rest, unplug for a while. Like I make a conscious effort to do that and try to unplug, as much as I can, which of course is not very often, but when I get my off days, I try to put that phone down and relax. But I wanted to play this for you. This is a very interesting little 2-minute interaction here, and this might explain some of the things, because you were right. You can't simply just send anybody to Gitmo, and there's nobody just going to be, just sitting there. But I found this interaction very interesting, and thanks to my buddy Milei from Patriot Politics for sending this over. I was trying to find it, and he hooked it up. Ready?
He says, post 9/11, that we've been at war, and it's called the war on terrorism. Do you generally agree with that concept?
I do, Senator, because Congress passed the authorization for use of military force, which is still in effect. And that was passed, of course, on September 14th, 2001, 3 days later.
Let's talk about the law in war. Is there a body of law called the law of armed conflict?
There is such a body, Senator.
Is there a body of law that's called basic criminal law?
Yes, Senator.
Are there differences between those two bodies of law?
Yes, Senator.
From an American citizen's point of view, do your constitutional rights follow you? If you're in Paris, does the Fourth Amendment protect you as an American from your own government?
From your own government, yes.
Okay. So if you're in Afghanistan, do your constitutional rights protect you against your own government?
If you're an American in Afghanistan, you have constitutional rights as against the U.S. government.
Is there a long-standing...
That's long-settled law.
Isn't there also a long-settled law that it goes back to the Eisentrager case? I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, Johnson versus Eisentrager.
Right. That American citizens who collaborate with the enemy have considered enemy combatants.
They can be. They can be. They're sometimes criminally prosecuted, sometimes treated in the military.
Well, let's talk about can be. I think
under Supreme Court precedent.
Right. There's a Supreme Court decision that said that American citizens who collaborated with Nazi saboteurs were tried by the military. Is that correct?
That is correct.
I think a couple of them were executed.
Yeah.
So if anybody doubts, there's a long-standing history in this country that your constitutional rights follow you wherever you go, but you don't have a constitutional right to turn on your own government, collaborate with the enemy of the nation. You'll be treated differently.
So maybe that's where we're going, Linda. And so if indeed it is as bad as we think it is, and, some people talk about the drop that talks about infiltration instead of invasion. I wasn't at this point, a few years ago, but I'm thoroughly convinced that infiltration was darn near complete, and they have the people in the places that they want them, especially now and even before President Trump under Obama. So if indeed we can prove that some of these people are giving comfort to our enemies of our country, then indeed they could possibly be handled via the military. Now, who knows if that's going to be Gitmo or not, but maybe a positive thing from almost 5 years ago there. I love that interaction. Let's talk about Candy.
Well, before you go on, I want to say I agree with everything that it says on here. There have been military tribunals and people put to death for treason since this country began. That's not unusual. American citizens and so on. That's not new. And yes, I agree with everything that he said. One thing he did not say is Gitmo. It's jurisdiction, it's location. And the regulations about Gitmo are only alien meaning non-American citizens, unprivileged, I forget all the rest of the words, unprivileged enemy combatants.
Yep.
Okay, so yes, that is what is in Gitmo. There can't be any American citizens, but there certainly can be tribunals and everything else with American citizens, just not that location. That's all I've been trying to say is your one hint when there are stories that come out that are so confusing, it's almost impossible to decipher. If you just keep that one thing in mind, that will let you know whether or not the story is factual. At least now that I've told you, who knows what they'll do next. But that's the only way that I've been able to tell. So I digress. That was an excellent clip. Thank you. I interrupted you.
No, it's fine. No, I was actually done with it. That's one of my favorite interactions there, and it's like so weird and out of place. It's like, they were bringing him in to be a justice, and it's like, why did he press him so much on that? So, like you said, if there are indeed things going on, which I believe, and like you previously said, you believe there are things happening as well, we're not going to be privy to them until boom, 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 last minute. And just to kind of piggyback off of the wonderful examples that you gave, Roe versus Wade and the Georgia Guidestones, like out of nowhere, kaboom. Like also, right, in the last, I'm going to go back 3-4 months now, we've had out of the blue, seemingly, the Vatican said, yeah, we have money in all these different banks throughout the world. We need to have all that money into one bank now, just as the Queen dies. Shortly thereafter, the head of the richest family probably ever known to man, allegedly, the Rothschild, Sir Evelyn de Rothschild, dies as well. So a lot of these weird things happening, and the timing of such is just, it's interesting, we can say, I guess. We can put a button in that and say it's interesting.
Well, the timing is fantastic, and we need some things that, some positive things happening. You hit the nail on the head. Everybody is battle weary. And we aren't even really what physical war used to be. Can you imagine? I mean, we're so spoiled. We are so.
Well, George Washington's people walking, with no sneakers in the winter. I mean, geez.
Right.
People do that nowadays.
All the different things that, happened to them. People that went through World War II, the Korean War, living like they did. If this is a war, I mean, it's basically a mind muck, so to speak, how to put it in a decent way. Yeah. This is all, a lot of war and everything is in the head. It's in the head. And so if you don't know what's real or what's happening, or you're afraid of everything, You're so easy to control. It's sad.
Exactly, and that's the difference. It's different generations we're dealing with here. And I'll put a little. I'm gonna put a little picture up that I think this is one of my favorite, meme slash pictures that, eloquently highlights, what we're dealing with here. And where is it? Here we go. And this is actually the same one I was thinking of too. You got the old. Wait, it didn't come up here. It went behind you. Oh, I gotta put you down. I gotta put you down like a dog now. Here we go. So here's. Let me make it a little smaller, of course. So the girl, my generation is gonna start a revolution. And the old, World War II guy's like, your generation can't even start a lawnmower, and that's the reality.
That.
It's the reality of it is like they, the better generation, that the tougher fabric built in just had to do everything. The modern conveniences we have made a lot of people soft for sure, and we need to just keep exposing things. I know it's the battle fatigue is a real thing for sure, and if you guys are feeling like that, then definitely unplug for a couple days. If it has to be a week, just don't check your social media and all that stuff. We will be here. We'll be here reporting. When you guys decide to come back, we'll be here. So anything else you want to touch on, Linda, before we skedaddle out the door, ski? Anything else coming up on the radar?
Yes, very briefly. Even though it isn't about the same things that CVINE is going through, there are a number of lawsuits right now that are going on against NewsGuard. And one of them is from the Gateway Pundit. I'm doing this from memory. Another one is from the Babylon Bee, because the Babylon Bee, got their butts kicked. Another one is through PragerU. The PragerU has, some very interesting things going on. You guys, this is how they basically get their news agencies to toe the line with the way the government says, or they defund you. There's some kind of crazy stories. I thought I had it bad. If you have anybody as a vendor, that if you get a bad news rating, some vendors won't work with you, or your bank, or any payment gateway. If you get a bad rating, if they cannot work with you, otherwise they are going to get in trouble. That goes with just going on and on and on and on. This is how they're trying to control the narrative coming out there. So reading some of these things about what has happened to these other places. I mean, we have our own story, but frankly, it's nothing. And compared to like PragerU, it's that, they go after your families. They, do all of this stuff. So these individuals that are standing tough through all this, we really need to support them. It's before, because most of these individuals are just the, everyday patriot, doesn't necessarily have millions of dollars behind them, to be able to do these very long, extended lawsuits against a formidable, very well-funded enemy. So it's, and that's the other thing, self-appointed fact-checking group, self-appointed. Oh,
Why can't we do it? Why don't we just come out and call ourselves, we'll call it the Space Lin, or Lin Space fact checking, and we're gonna go out there and check everybody and be like, yep, these guys are fake. I mean, geez, we could make our make a killing over there at CNN and MSNBC. I mean, on the daily.
well, that's why NewsGuard is after us, because that's exactly what we did. We had the licensed investigators, the attorneys, and all the individuals and volunteers, taking the time to do it, but we don't have the funding and the broad network that they do. So we truly are a bunch of Davids against a Goliath, so to speak. It's something's got to happen. It's because if it doesn't, it's not going to be pretty.
Now, what's what? Just really quickly, I know everything's kind of being. Are we on pause down there in Gitmo now, as far as waiting for the next whatever? Because I know you said like we have a new judge, and by the way, that judge, had made a statement just before he, relatively within a relatively short period after he said, "Oh yeah, I have no plans on leaving," right? And then all of a sudden it's like, "Oh, I might have to throw this case out. Oh wait, now I got to go spend time with my family." And this is numerous times. So I know we're at a hold, but what's the latest as far as any action or any notifications of upcoming action?
Yes. There are things going on, and anything and everything I always say is on the record, and it's open source. I do not want to give out rumors.
Oh, we love rumors.
So I am hesitating to answer this, but all I can say, and this was an off the record statement to me, so I cannot say it. But what I am going to state is keep your eyes on what happens with the KSM et al. Trials. Watch what happens, because it's going to be quick and it's going to happen. It's just watch what happens. Okay. They are actually waiting for the Biden administration to come back with an approval for the KSM et al. Plea deal. They're waiting for them to come back with an approval for the plea deal, but it hasn't come yet, and it continues to wait, and it continues to wait. You would think, using some deductive reasoning, that Biden has clearly stated, so has the Department of Defense, Chris Wray made the statement, the DOD, that they are going to carefully and responsibly shut down the Guantanamo Bay. That's what they stated. It was actually released in a news release that I can get for you. It's not hidden. It's public access. It was actually put out in a news release by the DOD, where they stated this, that they are in the process of closing it down. So one would think, using deductive reasoning, that the Biden administration would jump on the plea deal. Why aren't they? What's taking them so long? That's what's holding up. Because if that happens with a plea deal is being accepted, then it's case closed. And all this other information that none of us have answers to, because it's case closed, is literally that. And that all goes away. It's done. They send them back to their original countries and just move on. It's nothing else to look into. So something is stopping them. It's just my observation.
Maybe he doesn't want to be the guy that was known to make the plea deal with these. I mean, I know I certainly wouldn't, but then I think, well, who cares? I mean, because of all the other ridiculous things he's done lately, doesn't seem like he really cares much about, public perception on things. So we'll see. Like Linda said, guys, we'll see what happens, and hopefully we get something sooner than later, and we don't have to get too much more battle fatigue until it happens, right?
Well, in 2019, I will bring this up very quickly. The Washington Journal, WSD.
Maybe the Washington Journal or the Western Journal, maybe?
It was a Washington Journal, I believe it was. I'll correct it if I am wrong, but had put out an article in 2019. Actually, it was in June of 2019 that the Khalik Sheikh Mohammed was willing to make a plea deal and give the real name of the real orchestrators in exchange for taking death penalty off the table. And it was all page news. And the guy who was head of Gitmo, I believe it was the defense team, saying, no, I never said that. And they were backwalking that. And this was right after Bill Barr on September 12th refused to release the name. They were talking about doing something like this then. And here we are. And we're in the plea deal where they were insisting, no, that was never said. They are not going to do a plea deal. They were not going to release the name of the proverbial real orchestrator that's been kept under wraps. And yet here we are, and there is no agreement for the plea deal. What is it that the plea deal's coming up with? Saying, what? Giving what information? Why are they afraid to have it come out? Just keep an eye on things.
Yeah, maybe they don't want to find out that not only did we have foresight on some of this stuff, but maybe some of our intelligence agencies, similar to the Kennedy deal, may have had something to do with it as well. And, it's all the old problem, reaction, solution. You cause a problem to get the desired reaction, and their own solution, which in my opinion was the old Patriot Act, right? But here's where I think they messed up, Linda. Like the drops say, they never thought she would lose. And I really, truly believe that all that power that was vested in the president, in the office of the president, right, the commander-in-chief, all that power, they gave that to Trump. They didn't give it to him, of course. They never thought he was going to lose. They thought he was a joke, right? But he got into office, and I fully believe that he utilized that power. That was massive amounts of power that the president is given after he's like a dictator after the Patriot Act. So, like you said, we will see what happens. I gotta get Miss Space Shot some dinner ready. She's working late tonight, but it's always awesome to have you on, Linda. And of course, we'll be looking to you and CVINE for any updates that are coming, guys. If you are not following them, get over to Rumble and maybe even YouTube. But they ain't gonna be long for YouTube either, because they're already getting their strikes and they're going back just like it's reminiscent of my channel. I'm telling you, Linda, they went back 1.5 years, 2 years and removed one of my videos just like they did for you. So they're looking for whatever reasons they can basically to do so. So appreciate you coming on. Any final thoughts do you have for the folks, or any announcements?
Nope. I just reiterate, keep looking at Gitmo, keep watching, because they're closing down all the proceedings now. It's all enclosed, classified, all of them. So something's going on.
Interesting, very interesting. Yeah, we never know until we know, and then, like you said, it'll come quick. So. Thank you guys. I took pictures of the gold pills. When next time I'm live and I have a little bit more time, I will read those, and I don't ever forget to read those for you guys, so I appreciate that. I've released the scratch, and I want to thank all the mods out there. You guys do an awesome job helping myself and many others out there, and I want to thank Linda again one more time. Thank you so much, Linda, for coming on, and I will be back tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel with Hold the Line with Mac and Lisa, guys. So hopefully we will see you there. So with that said, we do appreciate each and every one of you guys for tuning in. And until that next video, thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Peace.
Take care.
Oop, go. Oh, that's not it. That's not it either. There we go.